welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Zan Shah. Zan, it's great to connect with you. Looking forward to our talk. I always love talking about the topic of data and AI. You are the CEO of Zeed, Data Talks, We Listen, translating data into value. If you go to the Zeed, Z-E-E-D, listens.com, your homepage says, we align your business and data strategy to create value by developing analytics and AI solutions to drive the key objectives of your organization using data-informed approach. Okay, so much here I want to talk about when it comes to AI, when it comes to data. There's an old story that Sam Walton is in the boardroom at Walmart, and his executives bring all the data. And he looks at it and thinks to himself, as the story was shared with me, I don't know if it's true or false, but it's a good story. Nobody here shops at Walmart. He goes and takes the data to the coffee and pie shop, has coffee and pie with his the people who shop at Walmart. And he comes back and he says, here's the data we're using, because this is what's important to the client. And so now today we live in a world where you can talk to AI in that way, and you can extract data. And so before we dive in, and your thing is about data talks, we listen, and translating data into value. My question is this: how do you know what data is the right data?
It's a great question. So first, thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Talking with you. So I would say, in the context of any organization, it's what matters most to the business, right? That's the space I work in.
But I want to ask you a question. On that. It's what matters most to the business of what they think matters, meaning there's no necessarily bad ideas, but there are bad assumptions. And we can look at someone like Borders Books, made a really one bad assumption that Amazon wasn't going to take them down. Kodak made one really bad assumption that digital cameras, even though they were the first to create it, weren't going to go anywhere, yada, yada, yada. And so who in that room, there's something called the 10th man, which is the one person who is there to be the opposite opinion. And so when a company is looking at what data is important to them, what advice do you give them to make sure that they really understand that?
Yeah, so we typically try to align what a business's primary strategy is with their data and AI strategy, right? So how are they measuring their organizational success? That's usually a good place to start. Otherwise, you're fishing for use cases left, right, and center, and you're not able to quantify the value that those use cases are going to deliver for the business.
Yeah.
So what's the overall business strategy? What are the KPIs that are driving the overall success of the business? If it's a publicly traded company, it's even easier to pick those measures out, right? You're talking high level revenue, top line, bottom line, margin, customer experience, employee experience, right? These are basically the same metrics for most companies. And then identifying what data do you have internally or externally to help drive insight into that strategy to deliver it in a more effective way.
Yeah.
That's usually a good place to start. And then if you're making the wrong assumption, that will reveal itself in the data once you start analyzing and modeling the data.
Yeah. Well, so talk to me about driving insight. I think, when I hear you talk about that driving insight, to me, it's driving insight based on, everything you shared, certain indicators, how we're, forecasting certain indicators and insights, and how we look at them. So how do you as a company look at those insights? How do you really pick them apart?
Yeah, I think one of the most common experiences I've had in my career is very experienced people in their organizations. Their gut dictates what decisions to make, right? Anecdotal feedback, pivot left, pivot right. Here's what we should do based on my decades of experience. And so what we try to do is incorporate that into visitor here. Sorry, into the data, right? Understand what the data is telling us from an analytical point of view, and then align the data perspective with the human perspective to come up with solutions which can actually be implemented in a practical way, right? Because the downside of using data only is the data only won't understand the nuance of the business and the nuance of the people who are going to be impacted by the business. And the downside of only using people's experience, especially in this day and age, is data can be a very helpful tool to help guide and inform organizations.
Yeah. Well, if you don't bring facts to the meeting, people just use their own opinion. And if people only use their own opinion that's not grounded in facts, that there's a lack of direction and credibility and limited lenses. But let's talk about guts, because gut's a big one. So tell me a time maybe where all the data pointed to A, but everybody's gut said B, and you and or the company you were working with were right.
Oh, that's a great one. So a company I was working with had opened a new call center. So they had primarily retail, and they'd opened a new call center. And part and parcel of their operational strategy was for phones to be operating one telephony platform. Yeah. So basically, John, you call your local branch and no one can answer the phone there. So this all happens within milliseconds, but it fans out in concentric circles until it reaches the call center. So at the call center, there's all kind of metrics around phone performance, right? Average handle time, what's the length of the call, how quickly are calls being answered. So now we're looking at that data at the branch level, at the retail branch level. And the regional sales leaders didn't believe what the data was telling them because it was such poor performance.
Yeah.
So we did an analysis, deep dive into the data to understand why that was happening, had some conversations with folks in the field to understand what was happening. What we learned was the reason it looked like people weren't answering the phones in these retail branches is because they had not been adequately trained on how to use the new system. Right. And so the story was, look, we're spending millions on marketing to generate demand, to drive calls into our call center or into our branches. We need to train people to understand that answering the phone is a really important bit in terms of driving sales conversion and customer service. And so initially we were met with a great deal of resistance because there's no way the numbers can be that low. Yeah. Right. And the data is just reporting what's happening. So we got one of the regional leaders on board, convinced him that this was actually not necessarily reflective of behavior in the branches, that they were answering the phones, but they may not have been answering them based on how the system was set up.
Yeah.
Within his region, he kind of plugged everything in the way it was supposed to be. He initially, within the first week, saw a huge spike in his answer percentage go up. Every week we had a 4-hour sales meeting with our chief sales officer. Once we were able to use him as not only an anecdotal example, but a data-driven example of what good looks like, all of the rest of the regions fell on board. Yeah. And then you started seeing sales conversion go up because people were answering the phones.
Yeah. You always need the pioneer who's going to listen, go against, a certain elements, and then all the laggards follow suit. So let's talk about AI. One of the things your team offers a ton of services when it comes to, intelligent solutions to scale organizations. When it comes to AI, machine learning and natural language processing. So I used the other day for the very first time something called notebook.lm, if you're familiar with it. And I uploaded, I'm not saying this to impress anyone, just to impress upon, I uploaded an e-copy of the book I wrote. The book I wrote is 80,000 words. In under 10 minutes, it read my book and created an 18-minute podcast of two people talking about my book that sounded as real as you and I talking, with hims and ha's and, oh, Dwoskin really, blew my mind when he said this, and the people were AI generated. It blew me away. And so talk a little bit about some of the things that are blowing companies away with what they have the capabilities to do when it comes to all the different types of AI and business intelligence and connected intelligence things that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think our space is working really with more traditional companies. And so when they say AI, when we talk to these senior leaders and executives who get excited about AI, they don't necessarily understand what they're talking about.
Right.
I would say like the wave of Gen AI over the past couple of years has really been a tailwind for a lot of folks to try to educate on what opportunities exist to help your businesses grow. Um, I would say the one that I've seen sort of consistently across different products is automation, just in general, right? How do you automate day-to-day tasks in a way that makes it creates more value for the human further up the value chain, and you're automating kind of the mundane task-oriented pieces of your work and letting AI do the thinking for you, or thinking quote unquote for you, right? Um,
So I have a question on
I
that.
have
I have a
yeah.
question on that. So I think a lot of people are looking at companies and saying, okay, when it comes to automating X, Y, or Z, right? You take a company in this, made up company right now, but the company has 5,000 employees. If we can automate and start incorporating a lot of this intelligence, what does that company, as far as people wise, look like in 2 years?
So that is a fantastic question. And I find myself on one side of the debate where I keep feeling like I'm the counterintuitive thought person here.
Yeah.
I actually think it doesn't impact the number of people that an organization will have, but it actually creates growth for the organization, for the economy, and it puts people in positions to do higher value work.
I feel exactly the same way. I feel the same way. I'm glad you said that. So tell the think community why.
Yeah, it's like AI, I really do believe it's a transformational technology, but it's not the first transformational technology that our society has ever sort of, gone through. And typically what you see historically when technology evolves and really takes hold is more jobs are created to optimize use of the technology.
Yeah.
Right? So if you think about, like, America used to be a manufacturing economy. Now a lot of manufacturing in this country, instead of having 100 line workers, there might be 5, and the rest might be robots. But there's additional service work that was created based on this operational efficiency was created, and you still need human beings to do that work, right? There will always be a component of humans working, because I don't think we're headed to a future where our robot overlords are going to take over the world, right? It's going to be like harmony between humans and machines, and there will always be additional value created by having humans as part of the puzzle.
Yeah. And I agree with you in the sense of, if I have these 5,000 people and 2,000 people are doing, $10 an hour work, let's just say $15 an hour work, $20 an hour work, $30, and I can get AI to do that, and they can be doing $100 an hour type of work and strategy, then it just raises the bar. And it allows people, I am a believer that people come to work and want to do their best. They want to grow, they want to learn, they want to get better. The majority of people who are coming. And so as companies continue to, I think I want your opinion on this, as companies continue to train their people to raise their skill sets in anticipation of what AI will begin to take over and get their people trained up, then they're just going to feel better about themselves. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, you're already starting to see this in healthcare, for example, where data models are being trained to help medical providers with diagnoses,
Yeah.
right? And so you still need a human being to assess the accuracy of the diagnosis. But what it's doing, if you're a doctor, for example, is now you're not spending as much time doing transcriptions, and you're not spending as much time actually looking at, pictures of x-rays to do a proper diagnosis, but you're now enabling those providers to spend more time with patients, right? And that's really kind of where you want the doctor to be. Um, the other thing I would say is, because AI is so transformational, you're seeing organizations think about the investment required to actually upskill their people, right?
Yeah.
Most businesses, people are the single largest expense you have. How do you translate that expense into value for the organization? That requires upskilling and training. So
Yeah.
in that sense, I think we're in like a very magical time in our global economy, because we're getting to see this transformation and participated in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think every company is going to have to move towards more training. I see it in my work. I mean, I'm a business coach. I'm helping train people all the time, from solopreneurs to Fortune companies, helping people, just grow in multiple different areas, whether you're a salesperson, a manager, an executive, but companies, I do believe we will start to see that, a lot more training. And that's what the younger generations also want. They want to be trained and they want to grow. All right, Zan, let's talk about you. Rewind with me however many years you want from before you were, let's say, 10 years old. Who planted a seed as a mentor that helped you build what you have today?
Yeah, I would have to give a great deal of credit to my father. At an early age, he sort of saw what I had natural proclivity to be good at.
Yeah,
Um, and one was really understanding numbers, and one was building relationships with people. And I think at a very early age, he was extremely supportive of me being able to cultivate those skills.
yeah,
Right. And then I think as my career evolved professionally, the key for me was trying to find mentors who could help me grow.
yeah,
Right. So reinforcing the things I'm good at, like my strengths, but then also getting feedback on areas where I had opportunities for growth,
yeah,
and understanding like how to step out of my comfort zone to enable that growth. There's a mantra I like to use, like, there's no comfort in growth and there's no growth in comfort.
yeah,
And so I'm very hesitant to just get very comfortable and put my warm blanket on, metaphorically, and just write it out. Like, that's not a place I'm happy in, right?
yeah. Anytime I'm really comfortable in business, I get really anxious, right? But I
The other
also
shoe's about to drop.
You're right, right. And I really have to, like, those are times I use to really plan ahead and know that, something's coming, something good is coming. Um, Talk to me about mentorship a little bit. It sounds like you have really grabbed on to picking mentors, and sometimes you can have mentors for a lifetime, and sometimes you have mentors that you grow out of. How did you pick, and how did you kind of, choose your mentors?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I do value mentorship highly, both being mentored and being a mentor to other folks, right? I'm a big believer that everything in life happens for a reason, and
Yeah,
things unfold the way they're supposed to. And I think when I was younger, I tried to be like, my natural personality is I'm a driver. And I think as I've gotten more mature personally and professionally, it's to take things to me as they're coming to me. So I believe that the mentors that I've been blessed with having, they've interceded in my life at the time that was appropriate for that to happen. Right.
yeah,
And whatever they're saying to me, if I'm actually as smart as I think I am, it's better for me to listen to their guidance and feedback, because that's where the value in that interaction is coming. Right.
yeah.
Like I tell my kids all the time, we have one mouth and two ears, right? Use your ears.
Amen.
Listening is the skill that you need to cultivate. And that's where I try to think about like the value of mentorship is, if someone wants to make the time to spend with me and impart their wisdom and life experience on me because they think it can be mutually beneficial, my obligation to them is, number one, to hear what they're having to say, and then number two, incorporating their feedback into my life's practice.
I love it. I feel the same way. The universe will put in front of you what you need in that moment, but it's our job to be aware, and pay attention and grab on.
Totally agree.
Yeah, no, totally. Um, how have you taken all of your lessons, and put it into your business? And what was the hardest lesson to learn along the way?
Oh, wow. I think the hardest lesson for me personally was, not everybody operates at my speed. And so learning patience, I guess, is how I would simplify it, right? If I'm driving in fifth gear in the fast lane, it I can either steamroll people and get to where I want to get, or, because we live in a society, I can slow my car down, get into first gear, get people in the car along the journey with me,
Yeah,
train them on how to drive at the speed that I need to go or we need to go organizationally, and then slowly nurture those relationships to get us all into the fast lane together.
yeah,
Right. I think that required for me a lot of learning because I've always been so hardwired just to go, go, go. That's probably been the key lesson. That's been very useful, later in my career, because I focus a lot more time now on the relationship aspect, especially with my own business, right? Our whole approach is people first. And so even if I have a solution for you, if it doesn't make sense for your organization based on resource constraint, time constraint, whatever it is, I will tell you that, right? I don't want you to do business with me simply because we can do business together. I want to do what's best for you as a person and for our relationship. And then if we can strike a business deal, fantastic, right? But it's almost ancillary.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's so interesting. To that point, I've had to learn that same lesson. And in my coaching business, sometimes I can go into a company or be coaching someone, and I kind of know relatively, my instincts guide me pretty quickly to what this person needs. But you got to get them there through questions and slow it down so they can, slowly get to their own level of awareness. And just kind of, so I love everything you had to say. It's intrinsically slowing down too is great, I think, for guys like you and me, because we get to the finish line at the same time. And so,
right.
Yeah. All right, let's do a quick speed round. A book that's had a big impact on you.
I would say The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho.
Oh, it's my favorite book. It's my number one favorite book ever. I love that book.
I love that book. Love it.
I love that book.
Timeless.
Yeah. I recommend that book to everybody. I just think it is so poignant and powerful and simplistic. I love it. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Listen twice before you speak.
I love it. Finish this sentence. One thing everybody can do to listen to their gut and realize where they need more AI or BI or CI into their business is?
Wow. I think right in front of you, wherever you are today, right? I think you can use AI, BI, CI. Data can help everyone anywhere at any time.
I love it. Zan, tell everybody who your ideal clients are and where they can connect with you.
Yeah. So our ideal clients are companies between, I would say, 10 million to 500 million in revenue. So mid-sized companies across all industries, especially traditional, right? Financial services, insurance, healthcare, auto repair, fintech, biotech. We've kind of got all the experience on board. And you can learn more about us at zeedlistens.com.
That's great. Zan, I appreciate this conversation. I loved it. I love talking about the topics. I love hearing your story. I loved hearing about your dad. Think community. I always like to extract a couple things as a business coach who works with solopreneurs to Fortune companies and everything in between. I work with successful people who are stuck. I get them unstuck. And I love this podcast, Zan, because I get to have guests who get people unstuck. And we're in all of the different areas, wherever they are, somehow they'll find this and it'll be a perfect fit for them. But in community, I always like to extract a couple things. And a couple of things that Zan was talking about is pay attention to your gut, know how to marry the gut with the data, become a training company, know what you can automate, the importance of mentors, and more importantly, slow down. Slow down. Zan, this was great. I appreciate it. You can reach Zan at zeedlistens.com. If you want to talk about any business coaching, you can reach me at jondwoskin.com. Zan, thanks so much. This was a great talk. I wish you all the best. And thanks for helping companies grow and scale, and the message of keeping their people trained so people can maybe stop fearing that they're going to lose their job and focus on growing their skill set so they can just be a better version of themselves. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John.